Harmed all over again, the terrible treatment of the victims of the infected blood scandal who are dying before they receive compensation. His anger barely contained. The chair of the inquiry into the scandal told the government it must do better.
Now is the time to put that right, so that you know that compensation will be faster, and more than that, fairer.
Delay, he said, is an injustice of its own for the victims and their relatives.
I want it to end.
Closure.
I want closure. I want everybody, the infected, the affected, to be able to put a line under this, even though they won't.
The situation might be sounding horribly familiar because it is. Yesterday, the victims of the post office scandal were shown to be suffering in the same way. Robert will try to shed some light on why the government is failing to do what it has repeatedly promised. Also tonight. With no shortage of pageantry to oil the wheels, France and the UK are close to signing a deal on migrant returns. No deal yet on a Gaza ceasefire. We speak to the mothers of hostages still being held, desperate for progress.
I'm just waiting that I will get the right phone call. Someone from our government will say to me, come to take your boy.
Christian Horner's 20-year run at Red Bull ends in tears, and the Lionesses make it 1, 2, 3, 4 to pick up their prospects in the Euros, but it's all going the other way for Wales.
This is ITV News at 10 with Romilly Weeks.
Good evening. When the head of the public inquiry into the NHS infected blood scandal delivered his report last year, he spelt out in no uncertain terms that compensation must be paid and quickly. Today he published another that should not have been necessary. But as Sir Brian Langham made clear in a speech of contained fury, too little compensation has been paid. People, he said, have been harmed yet further. If that sounds familiar or has created a sense of déjà vu, we carried a similar inquiry report only last night about the sub-postmasters caught up in the Horizon computer scandal. Today, a government that promised to right the wrongs of the past has been found wanting again.
A medical disaster spanning 2 decades, scarring or ending tens of thousands of lives. But injustice is being heaped upon injustice, with some victims dying before they receive compensation. That is the damning verdict of today's report.
I want it to end.
Closure.
I want closure. I want everybody, the infected, the affected, to be able to put a line under this, even though they won't. It's stuck with you for life.
Teresa's stepmom, Corinne, died after a routine blood transfusion left her fatally infected. A rare reconvened public inquiry revealed fewer than 500 compensation claims have been settled.
Now is the time to put that right, so that you know that compensation will be faster, and more than that, fairer.
Sir Brian's report says victims should be able to lodge a claim rather than being invited. Priority should go to the seriously ill or elderly, and a claim should not end with the death of a claimant.
If you do not get justice for these victims this time, are you prepared to revisit these problems again?
It's not my fight. This is the problem for people who have suffered, who've had the lived experience. They've been put through hell. And it's their view, their experiences which count, and they who should be listened to.
He was my older brother that I looked up to. He was a very, very pleasant man.
Richard's brother Mark was a haemophiliac. He died after receiving contaminated blood.
It just blew our family apart.
Do you think now that you're a step closer to justice for Mark?
Being stuck in the acceptance stage of grief for 40 years is not fun. It's traumatic. And I think people need to understand.
The government insists it's speeding up compensation. Almost £12 billion has been set aside. Today's report says it should pay out even more quickly than perhaps it planned. John Ray, News at 10.
And Robert is here. Robert, so hard to believe that this has been dragging on for so long. Why hasn't the government been able to get a grip on this and pay people more quickly?
So, two things. I've been talking to members of the government and they say there will be a formal response in the next couple of weeks to the criticisms that Sir Brian has made. And it is genuinely shocking that after all these years of these thousands of people suffering, we got the recommendation for compensation to be paid more than a year ago, and such a tiny number so far have received compensation. And I've been in touch on a regular basis with sufferers, and they have been shouting very loudly for weeks and months that the compensation system is not working. Now, the government won't say this publicly, but privately what they are saying to me is basically it is the fault of the Infected Blood Compensation Authority. That is the body that was set up last May to manage payments, and they're sort of basically saying it's not our fault. But then when I talk to MPs and indeed to sufferers, they say that's simply not good enough. This was supposed to be a government priority. The Labour Party in the last budget set aside, it was £11.8 billion. Just a few £100 million have now been paid on a discretionary basis out of that massive amount. If this was a priority, somebody at the top of government should have been monitoring whether or not the money was being paid, whether the compensation system was working, and they were not. And if this was an isolated example of the government not actually gripping the progress of the kind of things they say are important. We saw the same kind of problem with when it comes to compensation for sufferers in the post office scandal. But even big things like getting planning reform. Many people say to me, it's not happening fast enough. What has gone wrong? This is not the first time we've seen it in government. Why have they not got a senior person simply saying, these are our priorities, we've got to monitor them and we've got to make sure we hit them in a timely fashion? It's not happening, and many would say it's not good enough.
Right. Thank you, Robert. There was a bit more getting down to business today on President Macron's state visit to Britain. In the past few minutes, the two governments have agreed a reboot of their military cooperation, including working together on an upgrade for the Storm Shadow missile system. Also on the agenda for their formal summit meeting tomorrow, illegal channel crossings in small boats. The President and Prime Minister agreed that stopping the boats is a shared priority that requires shared solutions.
The morning after the great state banquet, after a night as guests of the King and Queen at Windsor Castle. The pomp and pageantry of a state visit over, the political work about to begin. A short walk to visit the ceremonial horses and work off breakfast, and it was goodbye to their host and hostess and into the limos for the drive to Downing Street. The finishing touches have now been put to a deal to return some migrants from the small boats to France, in return for allowing the same number of others to come by legal routes. After the disruptions of Brexit, it's something of a breakthrough in cross-channel cooperation. There'll be new deals on defence cooperation too, enough of very warm words on what's now being called the Entente Amicale.
We think alike, we work together, and I feel this relationship is as strong as it's ever been between our countries.
The partnership and the friendship between UK and France is absolutely, I would say, a game changer.
The most visible evidence of that is going to be the exchange next year of the Bayeux tapestry that documents the Norman conquest with the treasures of the Saxon burial ground at Sutton Hoo. The deal for the 9-month-long swap was signed by the two culture ministers this morning at the British Museum, where the Norman tapestries will go on display.
Together, we will build a new page of our common history and create a new era based on culture, knowledge, respect, science, and centuries and centuries of enlightenment creations and I would say friendship.
The President was back in full evening dress tonight as he arrived for a dinner in his honour at the Guildhall to be greeted by the Lord Mayor of London. It's been a day of warm words. Tomorrow there will be tougher talking at a full Anglo-French summit in Downing Street. Relations are certainly on the mend, better than at any time since Brexit. But no one pretends that on many issues there isn't a lot of work still to do. James Mates, News at 10.
Harry is in Downing Street. Harry, some details emerging tonight on how a deal which seems pretty close to send migrants back to France could work.
Yeah, that's right. This deal on migration not yet agreed and no guarantee it will be agreed, I'm told. Talks are ongoing tonight. This is a priority for the Prime Minister. He wants to see a one-in, one-out deal agreed with the French government that would see the UK able to deport illegal migrants who arrive on small boats in exchange for accepting asylum seekers from across Europe who have some sort of family connection in the UK. Now, reports in French newspapers tonight suggest that because this is a pilot phase of a deal, the numbers could be as low as 50 migrants per week deported back to France. And to put that into context, almost 700 illegal migrants arrived on small boats in the UK in just the past 7 days. Now, government sources say to me that, look, if this pilot phase was successful, they could expand this deal in future. The hold-up tonight, I'm told, is partly down to money and how much money the French government should get for policing French beaches. The other thing is whether other EU countries are comfortable with this sort of deal. So there will be some sort of declaration signed tomorrow at the culmination of this summit between Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron, but no guarantee yet if that will include migration.
Harry in Downing Street, thank you. Hopes for the people of Gaza that a ceasefire might be agreed while the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was in Washington have come to nothing. President Trump said this evening he thinks there's a chance this week or maybe next week. Nothing is definite, he added. Hamas said today it was prepared to release 10 Israeli hostages as part of any ceasefire negotiations. More on the other talks taking place in Qatar in a moment. Meanwhile, the mothers of some of the hostages were in London today, pressing for their release and reminding the world of their suffering.
Some of these families are praying their loved ones are still alive. For others, only memorial prayers. Their hope that the bodies will be released for a proper burial. Galia's son, Evetar, is believed to be alive. He was abducted from the Nova Music Festival. The last his family saw from him, he was being paraded in a video, too upsetting to show.
We heard very difficult testimonies about what they are going through, about the tortures, physical and mental tortures.
How confident are you that there will be an agreement, and how confident are you that your son could be coming home soon?
Now it must be an agreement. Enough. Enough. It's almost 2 years.
But despite the chance her son could be released as part of a ceasefire, for Galia and the other families, the plans are not welcome news. They insist that all 20 living hostages should be immediately released and at the same time.
Just 10 of them will get out. It's like a game.
Like a lottery?
Yeah, or a Russian roulette.
The family of Bipin Joshi fear the odds aren't in his favour. A Nepali citizen with no family in Israel, coming from a country with very little international power.
He arrived to Israel 3 weeks before he was taken hostage. He was elected to take part of a program, and the whole point of it was to come to Israel for 1 year, get educated on agriculture and to work in the kibbutz, and then to bring back that knowledge to Nepal to help them with better nutrition.
He was seen being taken into Gaza on October 7th. His family has heard nothing since.
They don't understand the conflict. And it's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. They just want their son back.
None of these families want to be the centre of international politics and conflict.
I'm just waiting that I will get the right phone call. Someone from our government will say to me, come to take your boy. He is safe now.
Do you feel confident that will happen?
Yeah, it must. No other way.
Galia David ending Sam's report there. And Rohit's here now. Rohit, everything resting on this for the families. What have you learned about the ceasefire talks?
Well, we've been
place?
speaking to three sources with proximity to different aspects of these discussions, and together we think that we can build a partial picture of what's been happening behind the scenes. You know, and the good news is there has been progress this week. Several areas of disagreement appear to have been almost resolved. But what's clear is that although things can move very quickly, they don't always move quickly in the right direction. And what's clear is that the main sticking point appears to be the issue of redeployment. This is the issue of where IDF soldiers go in the event of a ceasefire. My understanding is that earlier this week, Israel presented a map which involved IDF soldiers remaining in an area much larger than would have been deemed acceptable to Hamas. And so there was some pushback against that. A second source in the United States says that that map had the possibility, the potential to scupper the entire peace process, the entire talks process going on in Qatar this week. A third source was less pessimistic and said that this was always likely to be the last sticking point here. Remember how this works. The Israeli government and Hamas aren't sitting in the same room. They're talking through go-betweens, through intermediaries. And so by the time that one detail can be negotiated between one side and another, that can be a substantial amount of time. Today, we've seen Prime Minister Netanyahu who is still in Washington. He's been meeting senior officials here, the US Defense Secretary. Those talks continue. There is some pressure from President Trump, who really wants to claim some sort of victory before Netanyahu gets on the plane back to Israel. That's due to be tomorrow night. What we're being told by people involved in these negotiations is that the possibility of a big breakthrough in the next day seems very unlikely. In the next week, that's possible.
Let's hope. Rohit, thank you. The former Conservative MP and short-lived chairman of the party, Sir Jake Berry, has joined Reform UK. Sir Jake lost his Lancashire seat of Rosendale and Darwen to Labour in last summer's general election. He was chairman under Liz Truss. He said tonight the Conservatives had lost their way and a Reform UK government was the only way to get a country to be proud of again. To fans of Formula One, Christian Horner is the team principal who led Red Bull to a string of drivers and constructors' world championships. To fans of show business, he's the husband of the artist formerly known as Ginger Spice, Jerry Halliwell. He was also in the headlines last year over accusations of inappropriate text messaging, of which he was cleared twice. Whether it was those accusations or a recent drop in performance by Red Bull, he's out, sacked and replaced in the same day.
Christian Horner has spent 2 decades in the fast lane, married to a former Spice Girl and managing one of the most successful F1 teams ever.
Off a bit of gas.
He has been Red Bull's team principal since its inception and has 8 driver championships to his name.
For sure there's going to be a safety car.
But the wheels started to fall off the team last year when Horner was accused of inappropriate behaviour by a female colleague. He was twice cleared of the claims, which he denied, and Jerry Halliwell Horner publicly stuck by him.
She's been hugely supportive, and will continue to be so.
Max Verstappen is the champion of 2024.
Red Bull have won the last 4 drivers' titles with Max Verstappen behind the wheel. But this year the team's form has dipped dramatically and they've won just 2 races this season so far. And the apparent tension between their world champion, his father and Red Bull's boss has not improved.
There were a number of disagreements
during that period, including most recently at the British Grand Prix last weekend. For sure, they have wanted things to change, and they've been, well, Max's father has been very explicit about that. So I think that's definitely played a part in this.
Today, Red Bull said Horner has been instrumental in establishing Red Bull Racing as one of the most successful and attractive teams in Formula One, adding, "Thank you for everything, Christian." They gave no explanation for his departure today, but many will question if Red Bull was still a winning machine, would he still be in his position? Amy Lewis, News at 10.
It was an evening of contrasting fortunes for the two home teams at the Euros. A win for the Lionesses got their title defence back on track. Defeat for the Welsh Dragons means there's only the slimmest of chances of making it through the group stage. We'll come to Wales in a moment. England turned in a far better performance tonight, though, against the Netherlands. They won 4-0. Good news for their goal difference. Lauren James got 2 of them.
England had asked their fans to get behind them, so they showed up with bells and whistles and some much-needed belief. Surely they weren't about to watch the reigning champions get knocked out of a tournament which had barely begun. No pressure then on the players. This was only their second group match, but it felt more like a final. England played like a team that wasn't ready to go home. This early chance for Alessia Russo was a signal of what was to come. Just over 10 minutes later, it was Russo who set up this screamer from Lauren James.
Onto that left, James! England back in business at these Euros.
Showing, after an underwhelming performance against France, just why she's seen as a game changer. After a dominant first half, England scored a well-deserved second just before the break.
Then a shot from distance from Georgia Stanway.
And the Lionesses were only just getting started. James doubled her tally in the 60th minute before Ella Toone, with another ball from Russo, put the game to bed. Full time brought relief and redemption for England's poor start against France.
A little bit celebration now because this was really good, and yeah, we should celebrate that a bit. And then tomorrow we do the review, and then we go straight on to Wales. So yes, we're not there yet, but we made a very big step today.
The strength of England's performance tonight means that any kind of win against Wales on Sunday will now be enough to put them through to the knockout rounds.
More like England, we know. I was kind of worried in that France game. I was like, oh, come on, but we're back. We're back.
You think we're going to see England in the final now?
Oh, absolutely. We better do, because I've got tickets.
What did you think of that?
Super! Super! It was really cool. There were really nice goals, and it was superb result.
England promised their fans they could perform under pressure, and boy, did they do that tonight. Chloe Keedy, News at 10, Zurich.
For Wales, their first major overseas adventure is in need of not one but 2 minor miracles in the last group games. Otherwise, they will be coming home. As you might have seen, they lost 4-1 to France tonight. Their only goal came from the battling Jess Fishlock. Who else?
Few gave Wales chance of a single win in Switzerland, but the Red Wall was still in good spirits before tonight's game.
Come on, Hungary!
The opponents, a formidable France side fresh from defeating England. Wales fans were realistic about the challenge.
You know, the men have recently got to the World Cup and we've got to the Euros, so mega achievement for our Welsh nation.
10 years ago you wouldn't have seen any of this, like there wouldn't have been any fans, but now it's amazing how many people are coming out.
For France, this was supposed to be routine, and within the first 10 minutes it was all going to plan.
Towards Diani, and it's smashed in by Mateo.
Wales were 500-1 rank outsiders for this tournament, but fought back with heart. Their talisman, Jess Fishlock, poking the ball home. But was she offside?
Wales have had to wait a very long time for a first goal at a major tournament.
Eventually, Wales's historic achievement was confirmed.
It's a moment of Welsh wonder.
For a while, Wales held their own, but soon France scored a second through a penalty, and then a third.
Middleton
Chantel's got herself in a sticky spot here. She's given the ball away. And France have punished her.
Wales conceded 4 in the end to all but end their hopes of qualifying. But at this bar in Swansea, the glass was half full.
Huge effort, big underdogs going into the game, and really proud of the team. Yeah.
The results are not great, but it's amazing that we're here.
Yeah, they'll just slam England and that'll make up for everything. So, brilliant.
Wales will only have pride to play for when they do meet England on Sunday, but for their fans at least, it seems they already have it in spades. Rhys Williams, News at 10.
Chloe's in Zurich tonight. Chloe, wow, 2 very different emotions in the England and Wales camps tonight.
Yeah, that's right. Heartbreaking, really, for Wales tonight. They came here as the underdogs, the lowest ranked side in the tournament, and drawn in a group that really couldn't have been tougher, and it looks tonight like that has proved too much for them. But I think their fans, as you've heard, will still be very proud of what they've done. In fact, I know they are. From speaking to them here in Zurich this week, they came here in their thousands. They're the ones you really can't miss wandering around town in their bucket hats. And I've got absolutely no doubt that they will want to be there on Sunday, cheering Wales on in that final group game against England. I think England will go into that game feeling confident after tonight's performance. They were really like a different side to the one that lost against France on Saturday. They looked calm, they looked composed, they looked in control, and they looked actually a lot more like the Lionesses that won the trophy 3 years ago. Their fans, of course, were absolutely ecstatic coming out of the stadium tonight. And hey, what a difference a game makes. A few hours ago, they looked in real danger of going out of this competition, and now they are within touching distance of a quarter-final.
What a difference indeed. Chloe, thank you. Finally, between them, the actors Ralph Fiennes and Dame Harriet Walter of Succession fame know a thing or two about performing Shakespeare. Now he's directing her in As You Like It at Bath's Theatre Royal. He's clear on one thing: to mic or not to mic, that's the question. His answer: he doesn't like it one little bit.
With an old theatre like this, I feel the spirit.
While Ralph Fiennes is in charge of the season here at Bath's Theatre Royal, do not expect to see his actors wearing a microphone on stage.
This is something I feel there must be a movement against the reliance on microphones. I don't need a microphone in this theatre. To all those directors who want their actors to wear mic packs, thanks very much.
Let me speak from the heart for a moment.
Ralph Fiennes has had a busy year. Oscar nominated for Conclave, he has enlisted his fellow Shakespearean great Harriet Walter.
Hi.
Hello. Known to millions for the hit show Succession, he will be directing her in As You Like It.
I know you've acted together, Harriet. The prospect of being directed by this man.
It's a bit scary. I think he'll see through my every whim. It's very interesting working with him in a different light, actually, isn't it? Because usually you're so engrossed in your part and your bit, you know, whereas he's got an overview now, which is a different thing. But you also, I think, you promise to be very open.
Of course, we're sitting here in a regional theatre. A number of regional theatres in the United Kingdom right now are in a crisis, a funding crisis.
I don't know where there is a political party which affirms the importance of theatre and culture to the level that the Germans or the French do. I don't know. We have it in our national DNA.
We were saying this in the 70s, we were saying it. And it comes down to a very basic strand of philosophy that understands how important the arts are to society.
Find we a time for frighted peace.
She won rave reviews for her portrayal of Henry IV in an all-female production.
Present him, Eminence.
He recently played Macbeth to huge acclaim.
What do you make of the calls for us to stop teaching Shakespeare in
Terrible,
schools? It doesn't appeal to the TikTok generation, if you like.
Short-sighted to the point of almost suicidal.
Stupidity.
It means remember death.
Most recently seen in the apocalyptic 28 Years Later, Fiennes has already had 3 films out in the past year.
Are you a workaholic, Ralph?
Mm.
You are?
Mm-hmm. I am. I don't. That's it. I don't know what else to say.
His season of work here runs until mid-October. Nina Nannar, News at 10 in Bath.
And that's our final curtain. Thank you for staying up. From everyone here, good night.